Salesforce security, Apex sharing on account using territories as the target. On a previous video, I was talking about using Apex sharing on standard objects, specifically the account object. And because the only sharing reason you could use was manual, then those shares were wiped out after an ownership change. So I was looking deeper at other strategies of how we can use dynamic Apex sharing and have them persist. And while I was teaching my class on sharing and visibility, looking at territories, you can actually dynamically add people using Apex sharing, not just creating share records, but you can assign accounts to a territory and you can assign the users to a territory. Now, you can create these additional hidden territories that maybe aren't in your primary model, but they can be a side branch. And you can create a number of these territories and then use them as targets where you can use your dynamic code to add accounts into the territory and to add your users into the territories. Now, territory models can have up to 1,000 territories without having to request more from Salesforce. So if you have a need to dynamically bucket accounts into groupings less than that 1,000, or if you're willing to go to Salesforce and try to bump the number to a high number, what you can do is create these target buckets of placeholder territories and use them for placing accounts and use them for placing users. So I'm going to show how I'm going to create some special target territories, and I'm going to show the code for adding an account into the territory and adding a user into the territory. So here's a Salesforce org, and here's a territory model. It's a clean org, and I just have a top level primary. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to view the model, and let's assume I could have a full geographic territory model with West Coast, East Coast, all the states, any number of territories in my territory model. But I could also create a branch called special. And what I could do is create a territory in here, and let's call it special 1. And this could be a target of where I want to send in certain sharing. So I'm going to create, and we're going to go create a territory type, create a new territory type and call it special. So we'll give it a priority of 1. So this is a special territory type, and I'm going to go to my territory model. I'm going to view the hierarchy, and then under my special top level, I'm going to create a territory and call it special 1. And it's going to be a territory type of special. So this is a special territory type used just for my particular rules. Now I get to determine on the account whether they get to view, edit, and transfer. It even cascades to the opportunity. Do I want to view, edit, and the cases? So this is a very powerful way to create these target buckets. And I'm defining the special 1 bucket, and I set it up with certain access. So right now I have no assigned users, and I have no assigned accounts. Now you can create rules to assign these, but what we're looking at is we might have very unique dynamic rules to put into these buckets. And so we're going to programmatically put in manually assigned accounts and programmatically add assigned users. So the first thing we need the territory. We're going to go to territory. We can grab all of its values and we can query, and we're looking for that new territory that we just created. And there it is. There's the special 1. So in our Apex code, we would need to know what the target is. Now, most likely you'd have a query and you'd have a set of rules for your buckets of your territories. In this case, I know my particular record number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the developer console. So here's the developer console, and the first step, and this is code I've used in a previous one, creating account shares, creating account team members. what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating an account in a territory, and that uses what's called the object territory to association. So we're going to be creating an instance of this object, and we're going to be populated with the territory ID, which we just queried. So now we have our territory ID. We need the object ID of the object. And I've been using Burlington before, so I have its account ID. Or I could have gone to Workbench and decided, here's an account. And we're going to do his ID and name. So we're going to query this. And let's assume we're going to take Gene Point. So we're going to grab the bottom one. We're going to go to the developer console. And in the object ID, we're going to put the one we want, which is Gene Point. And the association cause is called territory to manual. And here is the help on this. So here's the help on the object territory to association. It gives me the fields, gives me the two causes. It's either an assignment rule, and it tells me the fields I need to populate. So this is that object. And what I'm going to do is I can highlight this code and execute the highlighted code. And what I've now done is with dynamic code, I've assigned, let's refresh, and I've assigned Gene Point in as a manually assigned account. So I can have code that can dynamically put the account in the bucket. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to dynamically add the user into the bucket. So what we're going to do is I would have code which would determine which users need to see this bucket. So I can go to the user table, ID, comma, username from user. And if I want to put beta in here, I could grab beta's user ID. Let me find the ID. Here's beta's user ID. Debug, execute anonymous. And here is the user ID here. Now I've had the same we'll go to the same territory ID. So what I'm going to be doing is doing the user to territory association. And if we look at its definition, here is the user territory to association. And it's putting the junction between a user and a territory. And all I'm going to do is 4 lines of code. And I'm going to execute the highlighted. And now I can refresh. So now I've got beta user in this bucket dynamically. I've got Gene Point, the account, in this bucket dynamically. And by doing that, the beta user has been granted access. So this way, and what I can even do is we're going to test the ownership change. And what I can do is I've gone to Gene Point, and I've changed it to a different user, and it's still inside the territory model. So this, by putting in these buckets, by creating a territory bucket, by manually assigning the account into the bucket, this is the equivalent of creating sharing rules. So it's dynamic sharing rules, which is essentially you've created your buckets of your territories, and you've put any number of users into that territory, and they have now been granted access. Now, this isn't a perfect solution for all scenarios, but if you have some kind of dynamic logic acting on accounts where you need to dynamically identify accounts, dynamically identify users, and grant some users access to accounts, and that can follow a model of these buckets where you can create, depending on how much you're already using your territory model, 1,000 different buckets. And you can then have code that can put the users in the bucket and the accounts in the bucket. And it's easy to monitor which users are in which territories and so on. So this can be a powerful mechanism, not useful in all situations, but it can be a great tool in your tool belt. And it only requires a handful of lines of code to add the account into the territory and to add the users into the territory. And now you've got that immediate sharing. I hope this is helpful, and maybe it'll help one of you. So thank you for joining Taming the Territories. Join again, same bat time, same bat channel. Subscribe to SteveTechArc on YouTube or www.stevetecharc.com. Thank you very much.